Welcome to the MMA Fan Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Stu and Blake.
Hello and welcome to the MMA Fan Show. I'm Stu Whiffin. Joining me this morning, always, Blake Harrison. Hello.
Hello, mate. You all right?
Yeah, of course I'm all right. Yeah. Everyone from the UK that loves MMA has woke up great today, and we know why, right?
Absolutely fantastic. What an achievement. What an
Insane.
achievement. I mean, we're gonna have to do an unusual thing by not starting at the main event.
Oh, 100%. We've not spoken about this yet, but I was thinking we can't start with the main event.
We can't start with the main event. There's only one place to start, and there is a new heavyweight champion of the world. Yes, it's interim, but whatever. And he's a UK guy. He's an English guy, and his name is Tom Aspinall. Oh
no, his full name, Blake.
Oh, former guest of the show, Tommy Aspinall. Tommy Aspinall.
Oh, so good. And I mean, let's just jump straight in. I mean, I don't think anyone particularly thought. I mean, I think I might have said that I think he's going to choke him out in the second round. But I think Tom said this is going to be quick either way. Like these are two devastating. I think there was so much attention on Pavlovich's power that I think people forget. And even in the post fight, Tom was like, "I've got power," and
and it's speed as well, isn't it? That was the thing. It's the speed. Like I did think to myself, there's definitely a situation where Tom explodes in with a 1-2 and catches him, and that's it. But I think almost anyone in that division can knock someone out because it's heavyweight, and that's what it's 4-ounce gloves. It's heavyweight, but what Tom's got, he's not necessarily got that death touch that Pavlovich has got, although he might have, to be fair. He's finished so many fights early. But I think it's the explosive speed. He comes in with such speed and explosiveness. And the first punch in the finishing sequence, if we just got straight into it, the first, he kind of went jab almost in his chest, then his right hand hit the temple, and he was wobbled immediately. As soon as that happened, he was wobbled. It was then he landed almost like another sort of 1-2 after that, and then he was on the floor, and that was it. It was, and also in the kind of moments leading up to that moment, Tom took a big shot. I think he took a left hook, his mouthpiece nearly came out. I think he had to quickly kind of shove his mouthpiece back in before it fell out of his mouth.
He looked composed.
Looked very composed. After that, there was a bit of head movement. But, as someone that's such a big fan of Tom and wanting to see Tom do well, Pavlovich landed that left hook. You see the mouthpiece sort of come out of his mouth, but you're like, but he's worn it well. And then Tom did that thing of Pavlovich, I think, swung for him with a combination, and Pavlovich kind of stuck his head back. Stuck his head backwards and kind of slipped a couple of shots, but in a way where his chin was right in the air and his hands weren't up, and you were like, "Oh, mate, that is a dangerous game to play." And then he just exploded in with that 1-2, and Jesus, man, it was so brilliant.
I have never been more right. So, did you watch it this morning? Did you wake up and watch it?
I woke up this morning at about. I actually, for us, had a bit of a lay-in, which was about 7:30, and then got up and watched the fights. And I started with the main card because obviously I didn't want to ruin anything. Got through the main card and then went back to the prelim. But the kids and the wife were up by the time Aspinall was fighting, and they because I did the show recently where for TNT Sports where Tom Aspinall was a guest, and this is days before he realized he would fight for the belt. They sort of feel like they know him a little bit, Yeah. I think they said on the show that the kids, they were like, he looks like a granddad that's just had Christmas dinner because he was so laid out. On the sofa as we were having this live watch along on TNT Sports, and that's how the kids describing that. It's like the granddad on the sofa. But I mean, man, like that, and we were all jumping up when he did it. It was like a great little family moment.
I went to bed relatively early last night, and with the intention of you know, probably getting up around the same time as you and watching it all and then doing this show. I woke up at 4 o'clock this morning and I was like, I don't think I'm going to be able to go back to sleep. I was so excited and worried for Tom Aspinall. Like, I'd completely forgot and wasn't worried about the Yuri fight. It was for me, it was like, Aspinall's got his shot. And I laid down, tossed and turned. Anyway, at 5 o'clock, I just got up and I was like, right, start with the main card. And I don't even know if I could have caught that fight live. I maybe could have, but I just put it on from the beginning and I watched the card, which obviously we'll discuss on this show. And when it happened, everybody in my house was still asleep. And I was like literally jumping around my front room with the most muted, yes! Like my arms were all over the place and I was screaming at the top of my voice, but no words were coming out. It was like, oh God, I really want to share this with someone. And I didn't want to then go on the socials because I thought, now we've got the bonus of getting to watch Yuri fight. And and then when you messaged this morning, I was like, can we just hurry up and get this show done? Because I need to explode about how amazing that was. And I mean, what a dude, man. Like, post-fight speech, phenomenal. I mean, before even the fight began, right? When they're called into the centre of the octagon, what a moment, right? Arms on each other's shoulders.
Loved it.
And then hugged it out. And then literally knew that they were both going to try and knock each other's heads clean off their shoulders. But the respect between them two, right from like all through media week, it's been fantastic. And it was lovely to see. It really was.
From everyone, really, as well. There's been not really any beef on this card. I don't think Prohaska and Pereira had any beef. I don't. Frivola and Saint Denis, both like army veterans for their respective countries. A lot of respect between them as well. It's been a really respectful week, and I've loved that. But particularly, I think it hit its peak in that moment that you just said, where Aspinall and Pavlovich are about to take on equally both the biggest fights in both their lives. They're both now fighting for the UFC belt in circumstances that no one would have foreseen. And Tom just puts his hand on his shoulder. Pavlovich reciprocates. They're sort of hugging. And then rather than just touch gloves, they give each other a little bro hug. And then, like, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. A guy from Russia and a guy from the north of England. And they're
it's what this sport needs more of.
It's what this sport is like. Don't get me wrong. I know that the beef sells and the trash talking sells, but I'm here all day for that. I absolutely love that. It was brilliant. And God, yeah, just what a moment. And what does this now mean going forward? Firstly, like the emotion on him when he won. I love his dad. I actually got to chat briefly with his dad, who was an IT guy and then taught himself jiu-jitsu by buying VHS tapes. I'd love to get him on the show. I said this to him when I did that thing. Obviously, we didn't know what was coming a couple of weeks later. But when I did that thing for TNT Sports, I was chatting to him. I was like, we'd love to get you on the show because he's just like crazy stories, just teaching himself jiu-jitsu from watching videos and then going into tournaments and winning. And then all these, he would obviously know, but like all these high-class jiu-jitsu trainers from around the world would watch him at tournaments and go, who's his trainer? He's like, oh no, he's self-taught. So he's like, why is he only like a blue belt? Oh, well, because he doesn't really know. He got a blue belt off of someone that saw him. He's like, no, he should be a brown belt. And he's like, gets given belts at these things, being like, you're too good for that to have this belt.
Wow.
Like,
I'll tell you what,
it's amazing stories.
I'd like to see, like, if Mummy Aspinall's like 5'6", they need to have a look. They need to have a little look at the milkman because, like, his old man's like a pretty short guy, isn't he? Like, where the hell did Tom come from?
No, I know Tom's massive. I mean, I met Tom's brother. When we did the for UFC London last time, I bumped into Tom's brother, who's again, I reckon it's nowhere near as big as Tom. He's not as wide, and he's probably a couple of inches shorter. But again, he's a tall lad. He's not like I'm not short, and he was taller than me. So it's funny seeing this huge heavyweight 6'4", 6'5" guy built like a brick shit house, and his dad is absolutely tiny. He probably could have picked up his dad and cradled him in his arms at the age of about 11.
Right.
Yeah.
Moving forward, right? I'm caught up in the moment, right? So hold on to this, Harrison, right?
Oh, here we go.
If it happens, which I don't think it will, he knocks out Stipe in a round.
Oh, that will never happen.
If it happens and he fights John Jones, he stops him. It goes through Jones. Seeing that on that, so what, 2 weeks' notice, injured for 10 days with a bad back.
Well, that's the other thing we haven't mentioned. Apparently, 2-3 days into his training camp, he pulled a muscle in his back and basically has not trained. So he got the call, trained for a couple of days, injured himself, and basically hasn't trained since. And then just went and did that to Sergey Pavlovich, who's the number one guy in the division. I mean, it's outrageous. But carry on. I know where you're going with this, but go on.
Destroys Jones. Like, absolutely. I mean, I think he'd wrestle the hell out and destroy Cyril Gane. I don't think anyone's going to stop Tom Aspinall. I know I'm caught up in the moment, but I can't see it. I was sitting there before we joined the chat to do this, and I was just thinking, we haven't seen much of Jones. Obviously, we saw the Gane fight, and we didn't get to see a lot. Obviously, we've seen a light heavyweight John Jones look average at times. Towards the end of his hiatus. And I just wonder if old man Bones is going to be able to deal with the speed. I mean, yes, he's as skilled in a multitude of disciplines as is Tom, but I wonder if Tom's size and speed to an aging Tom Jones, to an aging John Jones,
Tom Jones, he's got no chance.
I think, like, at the moment, I think it's a very winnable fight for Tom Aspinall. John Jones, not Tom. Who's going to stop him?
So no, look, I'm with you, but I'm trying to be pragmatic because
don't be excited and get hyped up.
Well, look, here's the thing. When you look at, I mean, I'm taking Stipe out of the equation. Stipe's not going to fight anyone other than John Jones, and that's it. So Stipe's not even in the equation.
I love Stipe, but when he walked into the arena last night, I saw the footage of him walking in. He looked like an old man.
But that's why I was never excited about the John Jones-Stipe fight. There's nothing in that fight for me. But I still think they're going to try and make it happen.
Yeah.
John Jones versus Tom Aspinall. Now, let's look back at where John Jones has struggled in the past. He's struggled against people that match him in size and like length and stuff like that. He's not had problems with necessarily power punchers. He's not had problems with great wrestlers, great jiu-jitsu guys. Stylistically, he's struggled at points when the person that's opposite him matches him for physical attributes. You're talking Gustafsson 1. Obviously, he dominated him in the second fight, but the first Gustafsson fight, that was a close fight. The Dominic Reyes fight, there's people out there that score that for Reyes, and look at where Reyes has gone now. And that's not a controversial pick. So people, so someone like Tom, who can not just match him in terms of height and length, but also is a natural heavyweight, just a naturally big guy. And on top of that, all right, people might go, yeah, but what about Cyril Gane? As we've seen, Cyril Gane has got next to no takedown defense, and it does look like there's potential that he was overawed by the fact that it was John Jones. Tom ain't going to be overawed by John Jones. Tom ain't going to have problems in the grappling. Could he get out-wrestled by John Jones? Maybe. It's a question that I'd love to have answered. But Tom's grappling is so good that he would be lethal off his back or be able to sweep and get top positions on good wrestlers. Whether he can do it to Jones or not, again, I don't want to go over the top. We don't know. But I don't see John being able to match Tom for power, for speed and explosivity. I really don't. I think it's a fight I'd want to see, ultimately. There's questions that need to be answered with regards to that fight. And if someone said to me now, John Jones is fighting Tom Aspinall in 6 months, 10 months, whatever it might be, when he's fit and healthy, I personally would favour Tom Aspinall. And I know that sounds crazy. A lot of people probably roll in their eyes. Maybe we are getting carried away. John Jones is the greatest to ever do it. But he is getting older. And I think Tom is just so bloody good because look what he's not struggled with anyone.
I don't think he's even in his prime yet.
No one's even given him an issue at the moment at heavyweight. So, yeah, man, I would favour Tom. I really, really would. So, yeah, maybe we're crazy. Maybe we're getting carried away.
No,
but
I don't think so. I don't think so. Like you say, nothing's causing problems yet. Obviously, there's the Blades fight, but that was a freak
That was
injury.
nothing.
Like,
That's the fight that I think causes Tom the most issues. And obviously, look, he went in there with a knee injury. You can't, like, that fight means nothing. But when I look at the heavyweight division now for Tom going forward, I'm thinking, right, well, Cyril Gane is a good shout to maybe get a title fight against Tom, because I do think that Tom will defend the interim belt before Jones comes back. So Cyril Gane is an option. I don't think Gane holds a candle to Tom when it comes to like takedown defense and all that kind of stuff. I think Tom will take him down. If Tom just stood and struck with him, he's playing a bit of a dangerous game. He's playing into Cyril's hands there a little bit. Maybe that could go wrong for Tom. But if he goes in there and goes, I'm going to be light on my feet, I'm going to hit him with a 1-2 and then just hit the takedowns, get the clinch, take him down, I think Tom takes Cyril all day long. Jailton Almeida, too small. Way too small. Jailton Almeida, as we saw with the Derek Lewis fight, great grappler, really good wrestling, is undersized for the division. And Tom would beat him up on the feet and match him, if not better him on the ground.
Has Blades got a fight in the pipeline?
Well, no, he was supposed to fight Almeida, but then got injured. Right. Blades is the only person that I look at and go, I mean, outside of Jones, obviously, because we still don't know about Jones, but Blades is the only person where I go, athletically, very, very gifted, incredibly good grappler, and has improved his striking. Again, I would still favour Tom, but I think stylistically, Blades is the only person in the heavyweight division outside of John Jones where I go, that's a tough fight. I think the rest of the division, I think he walks all over him.
But Blades, he's coming off of, am I right, a defeat to Pavlovich?
His last fight, I'm not sure, because he was scheduled to fight Jailton Almeida, and then he had to pull out with an injury. But he might be coming off of a loss. You might be right, to Sergey. He definitely fought Sergey and lost, I think, in the first round.
Yeah. So, like, I mean,
I'm not saying he's getting a title shot next. Yeah. That's not what I'm saying. So, I'm just saying, in terms of stylistically, I do think that is a difficult matchup for Tom. But not one I wouldn't favour him, just difficult. Yes, his last fight, Blades, was the Sergey Pavlovich loss.
So I think Pavlovich is the interesting person left in the equation now, because the rest of that heavyweight division are going to be going, fuck that. I do not want to fight this guy because it's not for a belt. Like, who's going to want to fight him? I mean, Almeida, potentially. I guess he's the only other person in that division that's he's climbing the ranks rather than kind of just sort of sitting within them, if you see what I'm saying. Like, and I don't think anyone's going to want that Pavlovich power unless it's for something big. And also, Pavlovich versus Almeida, Pavlovich versus Blades, are they big fights?
Well, but that doesn't matter now. Pavlovich is now in a position that Tom would have been in if he'd lost, where he's incredibly highly ranked. People will want to fight him to get that ranking spot. And he can headline fight nights, or he can be a featured bout on a pay-per-view card, and that be absolutely fine. You know, Ngannou wasn't always the headline act, even after I think he'd fought and lost to Stipe. I think he might have fought like Rosenstrike or some other people on his way back to a title. And so, you know, that's where Pavlovich is at now. And Pavlovich is only 31, I think. So he could we could easily get Tom Aspinall versus Pavlovich 2 in the next 2-3 years. But Pavlovich needs to go out there and do what Ngannou did and earn that number one contender spot back by going out there and knocking people out in first rounds again, which he's very capable of doing. But in terms of what's next for Tom, I think it's got to be, I think it will be Cyril Gane.
Well, I guess we've got to look at the extent of John Jones's injury and how long he's going to be out for. You know, I think
it's meant to be 8 to 10 months, I think. And when Jones comes back, he's going to fight Stipe. He's not going to fight Aspinall straight away. He's going to fight Stipe. Dana has said that he wants that fight to still happen. So that's the fight that's going to happen. The heavyweight belt will be on the line between Jones and Stipe, probably late summer, early autumn of next year. Well, Tom will defend the belt before then as an interim belt, much like Robert Whittaker did with the middleweight belt. Well, it depends because, I don't know.
Tom's just put 1 minute 9 seconds in and he's come out of it completely unscathed.
I think Dana is going to want him to sit and wait for a bit because as much as he could turn around and fight immediately, there's not a spot for him to do that. Because as we've established, if you haven't checked it out yet, we did a bonus episode the other day, which came out where we talked not only about differences that are going to happen with this show, but also with about the title fights that have been scheduled for next year. You've got Dricus du Plessis, Sean Strickland in January, Topuria Volkanovski in February, and Sean O'Malley, Chito Vera in March. All of those are headliners. Tom is not going to be on any of those cards. After that, you've got UFC 300. I don't think they're going to do an interim heavyweight title shot as title fight as their UFC 300 headliner.
Not going to happen. That happens. That's Conor Chandler, right? Surely, if they can get Conor to fight, then that's 300's got to be it, isn't it?
Possibly, but equally, it makes sense to not have Conor Chandler at UFC 300 because Conor will pull in so much money that if you did him at 301, then you've got kind of like a double hit. You've got 300, which people will pay for because it's 300, and then you got Conor Chandler, which people pay for because it's Conor. So business-wise, they might do 300 because Conor might want that on his legacy because he missed out on 200 because of what happened with was it like Nate Diaz and everything else that was going on? Because he was 205 was him versus Eddie Alvarez, I believe. That was the first Madison Square Garden card. And then UFC, I can't remember what it was, where he fought Nate Diaz, but was not 200. It was like 201, 202, whatever it was. So they could do that again, or maybe Conor will want to have 300 because he missed out on 200. So, yeah, but either way, so Tom probably won't be able to fight until May at the earliest of next year, but they've already spoken about the potential for not doing a March card in London and doing something in July instead. And there's also rumors about that being in Manchester. Nothing confirmed, nothing done. Dana White said he loves the O2, so it could still be there. But there are rumors of a card coming to Manchester at some point next year, which could be in July. If that happens, it makes all the sense in the world to make it a pay-per-view event, to make Tom the headline act because he's a Northern boy. That just makes so much sense. And it also makes sense to go Cyril, just, jump on the Eurostar, come over. And there you go. So it makes it very simple. The other thing is, because there's such a wait, maybe they will do Cyril Gane versus Jailton Almeida to solidify a number one contender for that interim belt. That's very possible as well. So there's options there for Tom. I think if it was up to Tom, I'm sure he'd be like, well, give me the fight in March and make it a London pay-per-view. And the UFC could still change things, but UFC 300, I'm assuming, will be in Vegas, and they've got all the other cards sort of sorted. They haven't got exact locations for February and March, but I can't imagine Sean O'Malley being anything other than the headline act. And if he's the headline act, there's no point doing it in England. You're going to do it in, California or Vegas or wherever. So the schedule for the UFC is what's prohibiting Tom from defending that belt earlier, I think.
Okay. Well, should we move on to the fight that followed?
I guess so. I just don't want to move on.
No, I don't.
I just want to talk about Tom and how the fact that we have a UK heavyweight champion of the world, and you can throw interim in there as much as you like. I think even if you want to talk about John Jones, I just don't think John Jones is going to stick around. You could say John Jones is the best heavyweight in the world. I can't argue with you too much. Whatever, fine.
John Jones
but
was tweeting
he's not
nice
going to
things about
Was
Aspinall.
he?
Yeah, he said.
Well, yeah.
But I would look at that last night and just think, I don't know if I fancy that.
But you don't need to if you're Jones. He's got loads of money. He's going to fight Stipe again, which is a very winnable fight, and he'll earn a pack hit from that. He's already the greatest light heavyweight of all time. A lot of people still think of him. We had Lerone Murphy on the preview to UFC 295. He's like, no, he's the greatest to ever do it. It's very hard to argue with that. My point was, it would be impossible to argue with that if he stuck around after beating Stipe and beat Tom Aspinall. If he did that, it's impossible to argue with him because he would have matched. Oh, no, he wouldn't have matched UFC heavyweight title defenses because he needs to get 3. But even so, I think a win over Cyril Gane, Stipe, and Tom Aspinall and all of his stuff that he did at light heavyweight, then it's just unquestionable. It's unquestionable that he is the greatest to ever do it. A lot of people think it's unquestionable now, but whatever. But I think that it's worth sticking around for in terms of legacy. But equally, I can see how he might go, do you know what? I'm getting older. I don't really fancy that. I'm going to earn way more money just fighting Stipe, and then I'll go off into the sunset, and people will still say I'm the greatest to ever do it. And maybe I'll pop back in 2 or 3 years for some kind of legacy fight. Who knows? But
one of the other people that are going to be regarded as one of the all-time greats, literally has been doing MMA for about a month, and that's two-way world champion Alex Pereira. I mean, the conversation we would not be having this conversation like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, would we? It is insane what we've seen, and I mean, before we get into the fight, and I mean, there was so much of the early, parts of that first round where we've been seeing that low kick he throws, which is so unorthodox. He doesn't set it up. He doesn't arc it in. It's just rapid. He doesn't telegraph anything. It's fucking crazy. And I watched a little video with him in the week where I saw a fantastic video where he's pranking DC, and then DC was saying, "Show me this low kick," and and he just clipped him, and he went, "What was that out of 10?" And he was like, 1. And he was like, "Okay, just give me 3." And he literally just barely moved his upper body and just threw this little kick in, which doesn't look like anything. And DC was like, "Fuck!" And then we saw that in this fight almost kind of dictate the first round, didn't we? You could see Yuri was switching stances, and I don't think he realised just how effective that kick is. I'm sure he knows it now. I'm sure his legs are fucking killing because it was so much power in it.
It was, and it doesn't look powerful, does it? As you say, there's no wind up, there's no telegraphing of that kick. It just seems to it looks like he almost gently throws it in there, but clearly it's unbelievably powerful. Right on the calf as well. The first one really affected Yuri. You could see, and he ate about 4 in the first round that would he was clearly really damaged by. And then in the second round, he ate a few more as well, I think. I mean, the first round was actually, I think, a tricky one to score because it was like the hard leg kicks of Pereira versus, I think, one uppercut from Yuri and then a little bit of minimal ground and pound. So I kind of thought it could go either way. And then round 2, Yuri...
He threw the uppercut again in the second round. I really like that. He winds that in from quite a distance as well.
Yeah, and Yuri's whole thing is odd angles that you're not expecting and stuff. And Yuri, I thought, was winning, other than the leg kicks clearly damaging him a little bit and taking away some of his mobility. Yuri, I thought, was winning the second round and could have been, technically 2 rounds up on the scorecards, however you want to say it. But he was pushing Pereira back against the fence. And I felt like he was landing a few decent strikes. And Pereira just, I don't know, to me, he looked a little bit unsure. He just looked like he didn't know quite what to throw other than the leg kick because nothing really from his hands was getting through. And then all of a sudden,
how do you prepare? How do you prepare for Yuri? It's such unorthodox movement.
But that's it. But in the fight, I felt like Pereira hadn't really got going other than the leg kicks, which clearly were very, very damaging. But Pereira didn't look overly comfortable. And then all of a sudden, he lands this monster of a left hook with his back up against the fence. And Yuri just crumbles. You could see the power is there. He just crumbled down. And credit to Yuri, crumbled sort of into a double leg. And then that was when Pereira was able to just get those elbows off and Yuri fell backwards. And it looked like it was potentially an early stoppage at first watch. And the commentators were saying that and other people were saying that. But then Yuri himself came out and said, "Oh, no, I was out. I would have kept going. My body would have kept going because that's who I am. But I was out."
Do you know what? I thought the commentary team jumped all over that as an early stoppage, and I thought that I didn't agree with it. I think Mark Goddard's the best in the business, and I think he's there. He's on top of that. And for me, it looked like his eyes went when he hit the deck. And I mean, what's to be gained from Yuri eating another 2 shots from Alex Pereira. Do you know what I mean? The job was done. He was not going to get out of that. It was the fight was over, and then I've gone on the socials and sort of gone and had a look at what people had to say about that, and I love Yuri, and there was a lot of people just caning Mark Goddard, and I'll tell you what, if you do that, make sure you don't see him at a show, because listen to the episode when we had him on, and he said like he's never met any of these people that have been giving him grief online, and when he does, he's going to be like Eric fucking Cantona, and he's going to go over that and into the crowd. So watch yourself. But yeah, I thought if you're a fan of a fighter and it hasn't gone your way, then I think maybe you lean more towards like, oh yeah, that was too early. But I didn't think it was, and I'm I wasn't particularly fussed who won this fight. I like both fighters, and I thought it was just a great matchup. I didn't think it was an early stoppage. Did you?
Watching it, yeah, because also I think when you watch Yuri, once the fight is called off and he's pulled off, Yuri sort of scrambles back to his feet relatively quickly.
Yeah.
And he didn't I didn't get a good look at him on his feet afterwards. He didn't look overly wobbly. Am I upset about the stoppage? No, because I do think you're right in that had it carried on. And also, do you know what it is? Yuri came out and said, I was out. So therefore, good stoppage, Mark Goddard. Doesn't matter what anyone thinks. If the fighter says, no, I was out, then that's it. Job's done. Game over. But had Yuri come out and said, that was an early stoppage, you can see I scrambled back to my feet, whatever, I think the narrative kind of changes and shifts for people. I'm someone that accepts what Yuri said and goes, fair enough, mate, you're out. Well done, Mark Goddard. Great stoppage. But had he said the complete opposite, I think I might be here now going, it was maybe a bit early because, visually, he didn't look out. So, and in these big title fights, you think you don't want anyone to take extra damage, but it's a really fine line. I wouldn't want to be a ref. This is no criticism of refs in general at all, because I don't think any of us would want to do it. It's such a fine line, these big title fights. I think clearly Mark Goddard made the right decision.
Yeah.
But I think it just goes to show as well how much a fighter's post-fight speech or whatever can change the narrative, because a lot of people were probably seeing it going, that was an early stoppage, but Yuri comes out and says, no, I was out. We're like, oh, fair enough, mate. But if Yuri comes out and says the opposite, I think there's a lot of people now bemoaning an early stoppage and having a go at Mark Goddard and thinking that they're vindicated in doing so. So it's interesting. But yeah, I mean, on to Pereira. 11 MMA fights, 2-weight UFC world champion. He's just broken MMA, isn't he? We were talking about Sean Strickland being a glitch in the Matrix the other day in how he dealt with Israel Adesanya. Alex Pereira is a glitch in the who does this? 11 MMA fights, not UFC fights, 11 MMA fights, and he is a 2-weight world champion. It's absolutely incredible. And he called out Israel Adesanya, saying he wants him to step up. I think it'd be fun. I'd like to see that trilogy eventually.
I think Jamal will probably go, mate, what about me? What are you doing?
Well, that's what he did do, because when he called him out, Jamal Hill was very irate in the stands. It seems on cage side.
I
think Dana White has said, has he?
Yeah, he.
Go on. What did he say?
He posted a picture of Pereira at cold after he put him down with Elsa's hair photoshopped on top of him, just saying "Let it go."
That is actually pretty funny. I quite like that. Well done, Izzy. But yeah, like I'd favour Pereira in that at light heavyweight.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
I think light heavyweight he might be a different beast, but I'd want to see it. I'd love to see Izzy take a bit of time, put on a bit of weight, try and match him physically, and then go and fight him at light heavyweight. I'd be well up for that. but I think Izzy might want to have something more to say at middleweight. And as you said, Jamal Hill is there, ready and waiting. I don't know what his recovery's been like from his ankle injury. I don't know how quickly he can get back in there. But Pereira versus Jamal Hill,
That's a
it's
great fight.
great fight and a built-in storyline. Jamal Hill beat Glover Teixeira, Pereira's mentor and coach. So it would make a lot of sense to do this fight and build that narrative of the apprentice trying to avenge the master and all that kind of stuff. I love a bit of that. So yeah, and it'd be a cracking stand-up fight. Jamal Hill, that performance he put on against Glover Teixeira, phenomenal performance, great kickboxing skills, great takedown defense. You imagine that this would be a stand-up fight. Maybe Jamal would want to throw in a takedown or two, just because I think you can see that's where Pereira is weakest. But man, that would be a cracking fight. And also, I said this on the preview show with Laurent Murphy on it, who said that the ref would have to wear a helmet in this fight. It leaves the door open. Don't book Johnny Walker versus Magomed Ankalaev 2. I don't care that it was a controversial
There's rumours
whatever.
of that. There's rumours of that. I think that's already booked.
No, scrap it. Dana, Mick Maynard, whoever it is. No, you don't do Johnny Walker versus Magomed Ankalaev. No one cares. No one cares. Give me Johnny Walker versus Yuri Prohazka. Let chaos fly. Give the ref a helmet, as Laurent Murphy said, and just let it go.
That's what you've got to call that.
That's the one.
Let chaos fly. That's got to be the tagline.
Mate, just I'd like them to just put some extra padding around the fence, something that just pushes them back against each other. There'll be like two pinballs in there, just going crazy on each other. I would absolutely love it. Yuri Prohazka, Johnny Walker is a fight I really, really want to see. So yeah, there you go. What card it was? What card?
Yes.
The main card was unbelievable. Everyone was a finish.
And while we're talking like heavyweights as well, we should also stress that I think it's kind of Ariel announced, didn't he, that Blachowicz Rakic is on as well.
Yes,
so
that's part of the 297 card, which is the Sean Strickland Sean Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis fight. Arnold Allen's on that card as well against Movsar Evloev. Really good card, 297 looks like. Not as good as 296, which is coming up, which is going to be absolutely crazy. But yeah.
Strickland is a dick.
Why? What's he done?
Absolute dick.
Well, I mean, what other than the usual, what's he done?
More just caning women's MMA. And he got into it. Shevchenko literally put it on him, which was hilarious. He was digging out. He started with Paige Van Zandt, then he went on to I can't think who else.
Oh, I think I might have seen this or something.
It was just grotty and rubbish, and he said some real. I don't know why I even looked at his Twitter. I think because Shevchenko retweeted something, I thought, what's going on there? And then I just see a couple of his tweets, just some really insensitive shit about some horrible stuff that's going on in the world right now. And I just think, mate, shut the fuck up. Like,
do you reckon he really means it, or do you reckon he's doing like? Is he being like Katie Hopkins, who I also think's a dick, and is like just being like?
It's my thing. That's what I do.
Is it like you're playing the pantomime villain? You're monetizing hatred at the end of the day. Is what you're doing.
You can be the pantomime villain, but you don't need to be a fucking idiot like that. You don't have to be really fucking disrespectful to people. And I'll fuck that guy. And and I put that down, and then I went and watched Pereira spark him again. It felt even better to watch it that time. Well, look, speaking of women's MMA, it was a big step up for Mackenzie Dern, and I think it was a bit too much of a step. I think for me, in them, her striking's come on a lot, but I think it hadn't come on to the level of Jessica Andrade, whose striking's phenomenal. You know, she's one of the best, female fighters when it comes to boxing and throwing her hands the way she does. And it felt to me, because she was throwing and she was throwing good jabs as well, Dern. And every now and again she sort of rush her, but it didn't feel like it was, it felt a bit too wild, and she was getting cantered, like, because that's what Andrade can do perfectly. And every time she stormed her, but she got a few shots off. But it just felt like Andrade just was like, I'll take a step back, then I'm going to plant, and then I'm going to hit you, and you are going to go, oh, I don't really fancy this. And I think we saw that happen several times. I think she was running out of ideas, Dern. I mean, it's been well documented that she's in, she's got a lot of personal stuff going on at the moment. Whether that affected her performance, I don't want to say that, because I think that takes away from what Jessica Andrade's done. I thought it was a really well fought fight by Andrade, and I thought she just knew what her strengths were and knew what Dern's weaknesses were and highlighted them. And I think it was a decent performance from Dern. But as it's been said by many people, there's levels to this, and I think that was a step up that was a little bit too big for her.
Yeah, I have to say, I was actually really impressed with Mackenzie Dern for the first round. I actually thought she was so willing to engage with a power puncher. And I said in the preview show that I feel like she'll get hit, get rattled early, and then be quite timid. Now, I think credit to Mackenzie Dern. I don't think she was timid. I think she's just... She was doing really well to begin with, I felt, in the striking exchange. And I think maybe winning the fight up until towards the end of the first round when she got dropped. And to do that against Jessica Andrade shows fearlessness. It shows courage. It shows a skill set as well that maybe she hadn't really possessed until more recently. But then after she did get cracked, I don't want to say she was timid, but she was in survival mode early. And she did come back and crack her with a 1-2, I think, in the second round that looked good, but Andrade just ate it. But she did look like she was flailing around. The defensive striking sort of went out the window. It was like she wasn't covering up properly. The arms were outstretched and she was just trying to keep her at bay. And the shot in the first round really impacted how Mackenzie defended herself during round 2. And but having said that, she wasn't timid. She was willing to engage and trying to engage. And credit to her, she went out on her shield. But there, as you said, levels in terms of the striking, there was levels. And Mackenzie, once she got rattled in the end of that first round, just her level seemed to drop. And that's when she got cracked and knocked down regularly. And that's when the fight got finished, and rightfully so. In terms of what
are we thinking, like this is the weight class that suits Andrade?
Yeah, I mean, but she has lost to Tatiana Suarez and Yan Xiaonan down there. I think Jessica Andrade now, even though she's not that old, she's had such a long fight career. There's how old you are in years, and then there's fight years, and there's a lot of tread on those tires in terms of the amount of damage she's taken and all that kind of stuff. So I think that, I mean, she'll still be ranked like 5th or something like that. I think she is. I tell you, the fight I really want to see is the Andrade Rose trilogy. That's the fight I want to see. 2 massive names. The trilogy is there. They're 1-1. Rose has just lost up at flyweight. I think Rose in previous interviews has said she's quite interested in staying at flyweight, but I really want to see her come back down and take on Andrade and have that trilogy. That is a really fun fight, because Andrade is not getting a title fight anytime soon. She's behind Yan Xiaonan. She's behind Tatiana Suarez. So she's not getting a title fight anytime soon. But a fight against Rose would be massive. That would be a really great fight.
I can't see Rose in the rankings.
Well, I'm assuming that's because she moved up to flyweight.
Right.
And she lost the fight. She didn't get ranked. So she maybe is technically unranked now, because maybe they pulled her out of strawweight to go into flyweight, but she lost her flyweight fight as an unranked fighter, even though she would have been like within the top 3 or whatever had she won. So, but obviously Rose sort of surpasses rankings, doesn't she? Rose is bigger than rankings. Like,
yeah, of course.
Rose could come back and she probably shouldn't, but she could come back and fight for the title in her first fight, especially with Zhang Wei Li being the champ. She could go straight into a title fight. And I don't think anyone would go, oh no, she's unranked. It's like, well, no, she's Rose. And she's not, she doesn't deserve to be unranked. if Rose had a fight booked and the UFC wanted to get to her and go, we need her to be ranked to book this fight, you could easily stick her in the top 5 and no one would bat an eyelid because she's got the resume to suggest she belongs there.
Yeah.
So I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Benoit Saint Denis, ooh, mama, against Matt Favola. That was.
I do not like. He is the God of War, mate.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. I mean, great fight. For the amount of time it lasted. He's the real deal, isn't he? And I mean,
he is.
When he threw that head kick, it looked like his leg was about 15 foot long. Like because it kind of, as he was like, Pride was backing off, and he just threw it, and it just kind of almost looked like he just grazed him. It
looked like he hit him with his toe, didn't he?
Yeah,
it looked like he hit him with his big toe, but it was enough to just send him out.
Hell, yeah. I
actually felt like Favola was actually doing really well and maybe getting some of the better of the wrestling exchanges up to that point. I felt like Favola was doing really well. And I also felt like after the sort of scramble and exchange that led to Favola sort of backing away, I don't know. I thought he felt like he was backing away with his hands too low and just like, I wonder if he and his team will look back at that and say, I'm trying to think of the politest way of putting this. It seemed like an unforced error. It was a bit like a kind of, tennis. It was an unforced error. He maybe should have been thinking about getting those hands up a little bit quicker. I mean, it's easier said than done, and who the hell am I to be talking that way? But that was just what I saw. I felt like when he was backing off, it was more about he could have done more to prevent that than Saint Denis making that happen. But maybe that's taking away from Saint Denis. But having said that, I'm a huge fan of Benny Saint Denis. And he's that's my new nickname for him, Benny Saint Denis. And and what I loved as well was at the end of the fight, Matt Favola is an American Army veteran. Saint Denis, as we've mentioned on this show, ex-French Special Forces, phenomenal guy on Armistice Day as well. And they both saluted each other. Did you see that? They went up to each other and saluted each other. I mean, we had the Pavlovich and Aspinall moment at the start of that fight. And then at the end of the Benny Saint Denis and Matt Favola fight, you had the saluting. There was some beautiful moments on this card. There really, really was. Great stuff from both of them as, say, ex-war veterans saluting each other after that moment in the cage. And I just think the only thing that went wrong with Saint Denis was the call-outs. Not good call-outs. Did you hear what he was saying?
No. Because, I mean, he's going to be ranked on Monday, right? Because Favola was 14, so he's going to find himself in the top 15, you'd presume.
He'd find himself in the top 15.
Who did
he called out Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje, who's he called out about 3 people. He called out Justin Gaethje, whose next fight is
maybe that's why.
Yeah, and Dustin Poirier was there, who was his other call-out. It's like, Justin Gaethje is a Saint Denis. But Justin Gaethje can sit around for ages. His next fight is Islam Makhachev. That's it. Whether Islam goes for Oliveira first or not, I still think Gaethje just waits around and goes, my next fight is for the belt. Dustin Poirier is too big. He ain't fighting Benoit Saint Denis. There's just no way. Dustin Poirier is ranked like 1, 2, 3, something like that. You're going to be ranked between 14 and probably 12 on Tuesday. You're not going to fight Dustin Poirier. Then his other fight was Gamrot, who I think has come off a win recently against Fiziev. So he ain't going to be looking behind him in the rankings. He's moving forward. So
Gamrot's ranked 6th. There's absolutely no way
he's going to
fight someone ranked 14.
I tell you,
Jalen Turner.
Yes, that's a good shout. Actually, I wasn't thinking of Jalen.
You got Moicano at 13, so there's a potential.
I've just got rid of my UFC rankings page by accident. But I tell you who I was leaning towards, and then I'm going to check out the rankings. And I know this is a big leap, but this person is coming off of 2 losses, so I don't think that this person can really pick and choose.
Go on.
And it's Rafael Fiziev.
I knew he was going to say that.
Yeah.
What?
That's a fight, though.
That is a fucking fight as well, that is.
Yeah. I mean, look, Jalen Turner's a good shout for sure. The winner or potentially loser of Bobby Green, Dan Hooker, which will be coming up soon, or the loser of Arman Sarukian versus Benil Dariush, that's also a shout. But I just feel like Viziev fought a little while ago. Saint-Denis did not take any damage. And I just think that... Oh, no, Viziev got injured, didn't he, in his fight?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's not going to work. Yeah, scrap that. I really like to see... And I think Saint-Denis deserves a huge test. I think you can give Saint-Denis... You don't have to give Saint-Denis 12 or 11. I think you can throw him into like a guy in the kind of 9 to 5 range and just see how he goes because he seems so exciting. But yeah, Fiziev would have been great, but I'm assuming he's still injured. He messed up his knee in that fight with Gamrot. So then I think you are looking at either the winner of Dan Hooker, Bobby Green, which comes up on December 2nd, or the loser, of Benil Dariush, Arman Sarukian, which is also on the December 2nd card. Everyone will be on a kind of similar timetable. And yeah, I think those are really good fights. And Moicano's a fun fight. Jalen Turner, who you pointed out, really fun fight as well. There's loads. Benoit Saint-Denis against almost anyone in that division is going to be a cracking fight for the hardcore fans or casual fans, I think, to just watch and enjoy. But in terms of his progression moving forward, I'd like to see him take on someone a little bit higher up the rankings. I think we can push Benoit Saint-Denis now and give him a really good shot. I don't think there's any reason to take it slow with him right now.
Okay. I mean, you touched on it earlier. Like, people weren't hanging around on this main card, were they? Like, we look at Lopez and Sabatini again, first round stoppage. Yeah, I mean, he dug deep and pulled that out, and good night. It was a ferocious stoppage of punches to give Lopez the win. But I don't know if you've got much to say about that, because the fight that I'd like to really talk about on this on the prelims was Lupi versus Ricci.
Oh, that's really interesting, because I didn't get to watch that fight properly because kids were all over the place. But I would like to talk about Lopez Sabatini, and I won't take too long. I think Lopez is potentially a special fighter. I'm really high on him. I think he's big for the weight class. He came in on short notice and gave Movsar Evloev a really tough fight and nearly submitted him 2 or 3 times in that fight. And he took it on short notice. And Evloev is a beast, as we'll see when he fights Arnold Allen in a few weeks. I think that Lopez has phenomenal jiu-jitsu. Clearly has KO power. We saw that last night. He has a good chin as well because he took some shots. And he takes shots off of people well. He's also got a belly button that looks a bit like a Cheerio. I don't know if you noticed that. He's got a very... it's got a Cheerio. It looks like a Cheerio. And, I think he should get some tattoos around it or something.
Stop looking at it. It's so weird.
It is a weird belly button, isn't it? It's a Cheerio. It's like someone's face just going... Ooh. But yeah, so I'm a big I reckon he should tattoo a face around it, and that's the mouth, like a surprised face.
Stop looking at
it. So please go and look at Diego Lopez's belly button, because it does look like a Cheerio. But I really, really like him. I think this guy could do a lot of stuff at featherweight. I'm really... Yeah, I just think he's dangerous everywhere. I think he's more lethal on the ground with his jiu-jitsu. He might come up against, like with Movsar Evloev, a wrestler that can dominate him down there, and maybe he'll struggle with that. But on a full camp, maybe he would have given Movsar more problems, So, yeah, I'm high on him. I think he's a really good fighter. Let's move on to your fight then, Godinez Ricci, because I didn't get to watch this properly. So talk me through it.
I'll tell you, probably didn't watch it, Sean Strickland, and he should have watched it, because what you got there was a fucking incredible fight between 2 absolute brawlers. It was fantastic. It was like toe to toe, and it was just a really, for me, I didn't really know too much about either of them. I know that I think they're both ranked, and it was just a fucking super exciting fight. They both just stood and traded. And I think I'd not long before that, for some reason, gave Sean Strickland's tweets a little bit of my time, and it just wound me up. And when I saw this, I was like, mate, this is women's MMA, and it's fucking fantastic. It was absolutely. Loopy got the decision, and it was, it was a pretty tight fight. But I think both of them are a problem at 115. I think we've got two fantastic fighters there, and they stood and banged. It was fantastic, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. Another stat for Godinez: first female fighter to win 4 fights in a calendar year, and I believe her first fight this year was in like April or May or something. So she's actually done it in like 7 or 8 months, winning
she needs
4
a break now.
Fights in a calendar year. Yeah,
that was a heavy old 3 rounds. She maybe have a little holiday and enjoy Christmas.
Something I thought was it won the fight of the night, and also I thought it could be a potential fight of the year contender, was Sadikov versus Borshev. Slava Claus. Oh my God, that was an incredible fight. It ended in a majority draw because it looked like Slava Claus won round 1 and round 3, and it was a 10-8 in round 2. If you haven't seen this fight, what a cracking fight this is. Borshev's kickboxing, his combinations, absolutely unreal. And then Sadikov, just the power of him. And then the wrestling as well, and the ground and pound opened Borshev up. And with elbows on the ground, and was just hitting him with power in the top, like really close to finishing him in round 2, which what gave him the 10-8 on 2 judges' scorecards. And then amazingly, Borshev in round 3 comes back and wins that round. He was ripping to the body, kicking, crisp combinations. Like, this was a cracking fight, a really, really brilliant fight that I think come when people start talking about the fights of the year, the higher profile fights will always be the ones people talk about. I've just realized my Mac's on low battery, so I better sort this out quick. But I'm gonna have to leave you because the charger's not in here, and I'm gonna have to run.
Oh my God, I'm gonna have to kill
talk
time.
about something else.
Okay, well, the Steve Erceg fight, and I mean, he's got, and I think the word unassuming is something that Blake touched on. He's just got this face that just looks like, I suppose we'll have a fight. And I was quite excited to see him. Did he open the main card? No, I think he may have headlined the prelims. Was actually from someone whose face is so unassuming. The fight was actually, I thought, quite uninteresting.
What have I missed?
I was just talking about. I went back up to Mr. Unassuming Face, Steve Erceg, and just how actually the fight was actually quite uninteresting, as it did not do anything for me. But
I thought it was all right to begin with. Third round was a bit clinch up against the fence, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But I love the fact that Erceg just looks like. Did you ever watch Succession?
No.
So if anyone's watching it, he looks like Kendall Roy and Steve Carell had a baby, and that is that's what Steve Erceg looks like. And I love that. I said this on the preview show. I love fighters that just look like just normal blokes that are like very unassuming, like Ryan Hall and Steve Erceg. So
he's got
but
them
2
Ryan
wins
Hall
down.
chops. He just looks like everything's just like, all right.
Yeah. Oh, fight. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we'll just have a fight. Yeah, fine. That's fine. Yeah, do you want to go for like a cup of tea afterwards? Yeah, lovely fight. And then I'm going to butcher his name, but Ravetsky beat Roosevelt Roberts by armbar. That was a bit of a nasty one. He does look like a problem. I think he's 16-1 or something like that now, Ravetsky. Little tank as well. Absolute, like, he's not tall, is he? He's just an absolute stacked little unit. But I mean, I don't think there's really anything else to talk about other than to remind people that we have a UK heavyweight champion of the world.
Yes, we have.
Brackets into him, but we don't care.
We don't care.
Phenomenal. Well done to Tom Aspinall. Incredible stuff. What a story. Takes the fight on 2 weeks' notice. Injured, basically doesn't have a camp, and he goes and does that to a really incredibly scary knockout artist. And he said a few things in the prelude to this fight and post the fight as well, talking about just how, like, he was scared. He was scared of Pavlovich. He was underprepared. All those things.
You'd be lying if you said you wasn't scared of fighting Pavlovich.
Yeah, but he said something in the press conference, the pre-fight press conference, where he's saying, "I have a really good relationship with fear, and I do some of my best work when I'm afraid." And I was just like, "That I think that's inspiring stuff. I absolutely love that." So
I've found like I've always run my fastest when I experience fear.
There's like a dog chasing you or something.
Yeah, like a rocket, mate. Shout out Cage Warriors. There was a fantastic card last night. I'd urge you to go and watch the Will Curry fight, which was phenomenal. But yeah, great Cage Warriors event last night. Go watch that on Fight Pass if you missed it. What else happened last night? I think there was a bare knuckle thing. I think Roy Nelson fought last night. I don't know. I don't know too much about it. I think it was on the Game Bread thing. I don't know. We don't really sort of.
Oh yeah, there was Jason Knight. I saw some images of Jason Knight's face absolutely smashed to pieces. God.
Yeah,
it looked horrible.
Pre and post stitches as well. It was.
Oh
God, he had the old Robbie Lawler lip, didn't he? Like,
yes, he did. Yeah,
not very nice.
Not good.
Some gloves on, boys.
But having said that, yes, do put some gloves on. But equally, I'm never that bothered about bare knuckle. Eddie Alvarez, Mike Perry looks quite fun. Did you see them punching each other in the stomach? Mike Perry's nuts. Actually, I'm sort of intrigued.
What's interesting?
So, yeah,
he's he just kept saying to Alvarez, "I'm so good at this shit." And the thing is, he is. He's weirdly found his niche, isn't he? Yeah,
he wasn't quite right for MMA. He probably wasn't quite right for boxing, but bare knuckle, he's just really good. It's kind of scary.
What's happened this year? Mike Perry's the best in the world at something. He's a world champ. Sean Strickland's a world champ. The world's fucked, mate. Man.
It's gone mad. It has gone mad. Well, look,
thank God.
Thanks very much for joining us. We have a UK heavyweight champ. Let's see what happens next. If we can get an extra card in the UK or something because of a pay-per-view event, get Tommy on there. We'll see what happens. But yeah, great stuff for Tom. Congratulations to him. Congratulations to Alex Pereira, who keeps defying logic when it comes to MMA in his 11th fight, two-weight world champion, and everyone else that won last night. I think we're done. We could just say go check out our episode with Tom. We had Tom on about a year ago, and it's a sort of career spanning chat about growing up and how he got into combat sports and stuff. It's a really fantastic episode, so go and check out our chat with Tom. Also, make sure if you missed that little bonus episode, we've built a TV studio and we're going to really upscale the podcast into a real visual show as well. So you can continue to listen to this as you've been doing so. But if you want to watch something and see something looking really good, then we've got a big sports desk and screens, and we're going to really kind of move things up. So it might be worth heading over to YouTube and subscribing just so you can check it out. Other than that, also coming your way. So not only subscribe on YouTube, but subscribe wherever you get your podcast from as well, because we've recorded and we're about to release an episode with 10-time Muay Thai kickboxing legend John Wayne Parr. We sat down with John Wayne and had a fantastic conversation with him. One of them career-spanning chats talking about how he got into it and how he become the legend that he is. That's coming your way soon. Other than that, should we talk about GamCare? Oh, yes. Let's talk about GamCare. GamCare, a fantastic charity that help people with gambling addictions. So if you haven't heard us talk about this before, have a quick listen to this, because GamCare can help anyone with gambling addictions and also family or friends of people with gambling addictions. So if you think you're someone that maybe suffers, maybe your wages are going straight on gambling, maybe you're looking at payday loans to supplement wages because you've spent them on gambling, anything like that, then please check GamCare out. They have a 24/7 helpline. They've got instant messaging on their little kind of chatbot stuff on their website. And they also have can get you free counseling sessions. And they can get you them very, very quickly indeed. And not just for the person suffering with a gambling addiction, but also the family and friends of someone that are suffering. Because if you are suffering with a gambling addiction, it doesn't just affect you, it does affect your loved ones as well. And also, the idea of gamblers has changed. It's not, old men down at the races anymore. people on their phones now are, losing awful lots of money on various gambling apps. And that is what's leading people into severe financial problems, emotional problems, and so on and so forth. So, Stu, have you got some of the details there for people to get some help?
Absolutely. That little pop-up chat box on the website, you can access that. I've just opened up the website and straight away it pops up, talk to someone, and you can get to there by going to GamCare, GAMCARE, gamcare.org.uk. It's gamcare.org.uk, or call them for free on 0808 8020 133. Once more, that's 0808 8020 133, gamcare.org.uk. We done.
We done. Tommy Aspinall, Aspinall, Tommy Aspinall, na 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 na. Tommy Aspinall, Aspinall.